We get to present to a lot of different organizations and associations and companies, literally all over the world. And it's interesting, what we found when we studied great cultures and leaders and so on, is that there was a common thread to all those that were exceptional. And that common thread was gratitude, recognition, appreciation. My voice was heard. I did good work. It was noticed. It was celebrated. Now, we're not going to go through everything with you here this afternoon. We picked a couple of elements that we think will be really important for you. And we will talk about companies and industries that have nothing to do with what you do. Don't worry about that. Think, what is the principle? How do I take it back to my team? Well, we studied the Hard Rock Cafe. It was really fun. So I used to work in New York City, in Manhattan. And the old Hard Rock Cafe was on 57th between 9th and 10th. And so one day, we were just a lot of pressure in New York. Just let's decompress. Let's go to the Hard Rock. So we go in, and they actually put us this time in the upper balcony. And in the lower bowl were a bunch of university students. And they were celebrating whatever, like exams were over, spring break. I can't remember exactly what. And one of the college kids jumped up on his table and started to dance. So as an apostle of appreciation, I kind of want to divine the room. And I think I want to talk to you, sister.
Oh, no.
Your name is?
Christy.
Christy. What would you expect the wait staff at most restaurants to do when somebody starts dancing on the table?
Probably clear the table of any dishes, glass, and then kindly escort you down off the table.
And out of the restaurant?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. What do you think happened at the Hard Rock Cafe?
Maybe they got on the table and danced with them.
That's exactly what happened. The waitress started to cheer and clap, and she jumped up on his table and started to dance with him. Now, do you think he will ever forget that? That's, not appropriate at most restaurants, absolutely inappropriate at the Hard Rock Cafe because of the Hard Rock culture. You see, at the Hard Rock Cafe, they have a philosophy that there's a little bit of rock star in everybody. Now, do you treat your customers differently when you look at them as rock stars as opposed to just hungry? I would submit that you do. And that's culture.
What other leadership trait do we all know, like employee engagement, and yet hasn't really moved in 40 years? In many cases, it's declining around the world. You've all seen the scary Gallup statistics on how low engagement is. Well, what we found in our research as we wrote this book was that there are accelerators of engagement, like being enabled, which is bigger than empowerment. Enable means I'm supported, I have the right tools and equipment, I have the right training, I am enabled. We found that was an accelerator of engagement. Also being energized. In many of the businesses that we heard about earlier, you're working in very demanding, stressful businesses. How do you keep your people energized? That's what we'll talk about here for a moment. Let me just kind of blow these up for just a second. So the first that I think you could all define, employee engagement means I'm attached to the organization. I'm willing to give an extra effort, take on an extra project, do an extra assignment. What we find is enablement is the accelerator of engagement. So in other words, if I'm engaged but not enabled, it's a little like a hamster spinning on a wheel. I've got nowhere to go. If you enable me, though, I'm able to run. And that means I feel supported. But look at what happens when we have companies with high levels of engaged, enabled, and energized people. Almost 3 times more profitable than low engagement and twice as profitable almost than companies with just high engagement. You can see there's something happening here, an accelerator that is moving an organization forward. Now, so what does it mean to be engaged at work? Let's just give you this. This is what we found. We had 23 different countries in the survey, and no matter where you are in the world, the top driver was the same. To feel engaged as an employee, I need to feel like I have the opportunity to do my best work every day, and I have the opportunity to grow and develop, and somebody cares about my well-being. Who's that person? The leader, yeah. My manager, my boss, actually cares about me as an individual. Now, the second highest driver was trust, that I trust this organization, but also I feel trusted. I feel like somebody trusts me around here. And third driver was pride in the organization. It's the third highest driver of engagement around the world. You think of all the things that could be driving people like teamwork or communication, etc. No. It's, do I feel proud of what we are doing here in my organization? So then we had these and we said, well, how do we drive these drivers? So this is where we went further back into our data. We have about 100 questions we asked people with all these hundreds of thousands of surveys we've done. To drive pride, you have to feel something we call alignment. It's a series of questions, things like, I know what matters most around here. I believe our values are in alignment with my personal values, those types of things. What we found, though, in less than half of organizations, when you ask people what matters most, they kind of go, everything matters the most around here. And when everything matters the most, nothing matters the most. So that's unfortunate. So are you creating alignment? Now, we're going to get to recognition in just a moment, because how do you help people understand what matters the most? Is you recognize the things that matter the most. Now, here's the number one driver of trust was communication. You know, we heard this over and over in our studies. My boss comes in at 9, you know, she closes the door, don't see her through the rest of the day. I don't know what's going on. In those high engagement, high trust environments we studied, managers spend about 75% of their time on average working with their people, out with them, not in meetings, not working with clients, but working with their people, helping reduce stress. Now, here's where it comes to why we're here today. What's the number one driver? It's gratitude, it's recognition. That's what makes people feel like they have the opportunity to do their best work because I'm being recognized for it. And somebody cares about me because I'm being recognized on a regular basis. We found it was not only the number one driver of opportunity and well-being, it was the number 2 driver of pride, the number 4 driver of trust. It just raised all ships in the harbor the more that we were grateful. And it's, as you know, it's one of those low-hanging fruit that when we go in and we work with an organization to raise their engagement scores, this is one of the first things we put in place because it's easy and it doesn't cost a lot to get started, et cetera.
We took a deep dive onto anxiety in the workplace, and here are the numbers. If you're going to take a screenshot, this is a good one, by the way, is that pre-pandemic, about 18% of workers were living with some kind of anxiety disorder. So about 1 in 5, right? So everybody gets anxious, and sometimes it's a good thing to be a little anxious, get your endorphins going, get you psyched up for the presentation or whatever. But an anxiety disorder is it keeps me from doing my job. Got it? So then look at this, by 2023, that jumped to 30% of employees overall had some kind of anxiety disorder. And look at this, 42% of people in their 20s. That's a really big number. That's a big number. And you talk about retention, 50% of millennials and 75% of Gen Z said that they have left a job due to mental health issues. They just leave. So we wanted to know, well, why? You see, Adrian and I are, kind of baby boomers and Gen X, and our generation, we don't talk about this kind of stuff, right? And people would come to us and say, look, I'm really anxious, I'm getting kind of, and we'd say, you know what? Just relax, man. Just calm down. Yeah, that Calm app, that Calm app's great. Yeah. Rub some dirt on it, get back in the game, And it's really interesting. We just say, let's calm down. We love this quote, never in the history of calming down has anyone ever calmed down by being told to calm down, right? You do that with your kids, calm down. I think the yelling helps, yeah. So what is the solution? Well, for a carrot here, just yell it out. What % of employees do you think feel safe talking to their immediate supervisor or manager about mental health? 0 is low. 5% is low. 15 is high. 10. We got a winner. 10%. Round of applause. Yeah. So flip that around. 90% of employees don't feel safe talking to their managers. Why? Why? Why is that not safe? Job security, because I'll be perceived as weak. Can't do the job. I told you this was going to be stressful. Now you're telling me you can't do it. And it's weird because anything else is fine, right? Like if I was out skiing and I broke my leg, they go, oh, geez, take care of that, get some PT. Come back when you're ready. Some I go, hey, I'm overwhelmed. I need a mental break. We go. And if you're the employee, it's like, I won't get the raise. I won't get the promotion. So we got to fix that. We got to fix that. So what is your role as a leader? Normalize the conversation, destigmatize it, and empathize. First and foremost, normalize. It's a normal human emotion. We all get anxious, right? Secondly, destigmatize it. Say, look, if 42% of your workers in their 20s showed up with a broken leg, you think you'd take a deep dive on that? Absolutely, right? So you say, look, it's not a problem. If you broke your leg, we'd address it. This is nothing worse than broken legs are bad. You get the idea, right? And it's so interesting that one of the ways that you can do that as a leader, and it's not easy, is if you share your story. Have you ever seen that happen with leaders? We had a really good friend, Nabila Extalaban. She was a chief human resource officer for Walmart. And she said, I'm a recovering workaholic. She said, I work for some of the biggest brands in the world, and I would work 90-hour weeks, and I would sacrifice everything for the job. And it cost me. It cost me my physical health, my mental health, it cost me my marriage. I don't want that to happen to you. A big group of Walmart employees. And as she took questions, one of the employees said, well, easy for you to say, Nabila. You're now the chief human resource officer at Walmart. Would you have gotten there if you hadn't made those sacrifices? Good question, eh? And she said, yes, I would have gotten here. It would have taken me longer. And knowing what I know now, I would make that trade.